Hi, I'm Caroline Templeton. I'm a program manager in the identity division at Microsoft. My team's focus is on Azure AD identity governance and access management. This includes features like entitlement management, access reviews, and privileged identity management.
Hi, folks. My name is Nitika Gupta. I'm a program manager lead in the identity division at Microsoft. My team is responsible for Azure AD conditional access and Azure AD multi-factor authentication. In this session, we'll talk about zero trust for all the users in your organization, whether it be your employees, your business partners, your vendors, and customers. We often talk about zero trust for our employees. Partners, vendors, and customers are an important part of your business. Unless you have a security policy that is enforced consistently and effectively, these external identities can become the weakest link in your environment. In the last few years, we have been talking to customers about digital transformation. Organizations were moving to cloud, end users want to work from their personal devices, end users want to be able to access resources from home, and all that led to IT having to rethink their identity security strategy. For organizations, the digital transformation roadmap looked like anywhere from several months to years. In response to COVID in the last few months, the digital transformation roadmap has dramatically shrunk. We have seen customers deploy identity security features like conditional access and MFA in a matter of weeks, which would usually take them months or years. I wanted to share a quote from our CEO, Satya Nadella. We have seen 2 years worth of digital transformation in 2 months. What we used to call the new world on the right has now become our current world. We are all working from home. Our parameters have expanded. And IT needs new identity security strategy to meet the needs of this current world. That's where zero trust comes in play. Zero trust is a modern security approach which treats every access attempt like it's coming from our untrusted network. With zero trust, organizations no longer build trust in their corporate network, and they make sure they verify all elements of the access. With this new approach, you need new sets of principles. Zero trust has 3 core principles. The first principle is to verify explicitly. Ensure that you're verifying every element of the access, like the user, the location that they're coming from, the device, whether the device is healthy, the application that the user is going to, whether it's a high sensitive application or not, or the kind of data that the user is trying to access. Once you verify every element of the access, you want to grant least privileged access. Using just-in-time and just enough access, you can make sure the user has access to only the right resources at the right time. Lastly, you want to assume breach in your environment, and you want to minimize the impact of a breach by segmentation of your access based on user, devices, app, and network. On top of all this, you want to constantly monitor your environment and have visibility into everything that's going on and make sure you have a threat response plan. We often talk about zero trust for our employees. The zero trust approach can apply to all kinds of users, beyond just your employees, to your business partners and your customers. Traditionally, organizations have had different tools to manage these different kinds of users. That was because there were distinct requirements around user experience, the resources this user needs to access, as well as the security needs for each of these kinds of users. Those requirements are no longer distinct. Your employees and your partners expect a consumer-grade experience, whereas your customers are expecting that you are protecting their account against breach. Azure AD provides you a single integrated experience for all kinds of users: employees, business partners, and customers. You can consistently apply zero trust principles to these 3 user kinds. And in this session, we'll show you how it all works. Now let's double click into how you can extend Zero Trust to your business partners. I'll hand off to Caroline to walk us through the story.
Thanks, Nitika. Azure AD enables you to collaborate with your B2B partners. These could be suppliers, vendors, distributors, any type of B2B guest that you're inviting into your tenant. You can invite those users in with their accounts from other Azure AD organizations. You could use non-traditional IDs, including one-time email passcodes, or you can also use social IDs or an ID from a different identity provider. Those external partners can then connect to resources in your tenant, like SharePoint Online, Office 365 applications, in addition to SaaS apps and other custom on-prem line of business applications. As Nitika mentioned, Zero Trust has 3 core principles. With Azure AD governance features, you can require least privilege access for your business partners. And then using conditional access and identity protection, you can explicitly verify that access and enforce policies, including risk-based policies. Let's take a look at how we do this. Let's start with our identity governance features. This includes entitlement management, access reviews, and privilege identity management. When I talk about giving users access, that part can be pretty easy. The harder part is determining who has that access, do they really need it, and then removing it if they don't. The old way of collaborating was all about, sending documents over email, maybe creating a SharePoint site and, inviting users into it. And then hopefully you go back later and clean up that access. We found is a lot of customers don't. So this way with Azure AD governance features, which are built into Azure AD natively, you can protect, monitor, and audit access to critical assets. This is not just for your employees, but also can be applied to your business partners as well. Just as I mentioned earlier, you can bring those partners in using B2B. You can quickly get them started with access they need through entitlement management. This includes workflows that enable self-service requests to access packages for the groups, apps, SharePoint sites they might need. After you have those users in your tenant, you can ensure that those users don't have more access than they need or for longer than they might need it. And you can do that via Azure AD Access Reviews. With access reviews, you can set up these recurring reviews that either has the person who has that access, the group owner, or someone else in your organization to review that person's access, say whether they still need it, and if they don't, we would remove it afterwards. With access reviews too, you can configure it as part of your entitlement management access packages, or you can target specific resources within your tenant. And you can specifically select only guest or external users as part of those access reviews if you want to treat your guest users differently than your employees. And then finally, if you have external users assigned to privileged roles within your directory, you can use a privilege identity management to establish controls with time-limited access so that those external users don't have permanent role assignments. They can just get those permissions when they need it to perform the tasks they need to do. So with all these different identity governance features, you can manage the identity lifecycle of those external users coming into your tenant. Let's dive a little bit deeper into how you can use entitlement management with access reviews. For this demo, I'm going to set up a scenario where we have Rabindra, who is an IT admin with Woodgrove. Woodgrove is in a car dealership, and they're working with Contoso, an auto parts supplier. Rabindra needs to set up access for all those Contoso's users that are going to be collaborating with Woodgrove. And Megan is one of those. So she works for Contoso, working on auto part purchases and scheduling, and she just joined that team working with Woodgrove. Let's switch on over to the Azure portal, and I can show you how to create an access package to get Megan started. So now we're in the Azure portal in the Identity Governance Blades, and we're going to create a new access package. So the purpose of this access package is for all those Contoso users collaborating with Woodgrove. So I'm going to name this Standard Contoso Access and add a description in case someone comes back later and wants to know what this was for. Next, we're going to decide which resources we want in scope. So I know that there's a group that is for those Contoso and Woodgrove users. And then those users are going to need access to the Box application in order to perform the role. Search for it. There we go. And then there's a team site as well that Woodgrove and Contoso employees collaborate on. So now that we have those resources added, we also need to add the role that the user will have. So these users will just be using these, so they just can be members and users. Next, we're going to deal with the audience for this access package. So up until this point, this access package could be for both employees and external users. This is where we're going to differentiate. So if you wanted to have this just for your employees or all users in your organization, you could select for users in your directory. But since we want this, again, focused on all those Contoso partners, we're going to select for users not in your directory. Woodgrove is already a connected organization with Contoso. So I'm going to select Contoso from one of the connected organizations. Now that's selected, I would have other options as well to do all connected organizations or all users. But we want Contoso only. And another option here is to add an approval workflow. So if we wanted to, we could add this approval required. In this way, if we had an external sponsor, maybe in Contoso, who's in charge of the project with Woodgrove, we could actually have that person in charge of approving all these requests, these access packages. You can even set a fallback in case that person's on vacation. Also have the option to add stages. So maybe if you want someone from both Contoso to approve it and as well someone from Woodgrove to approve the access package, you can do that as well. You can add a justification for audit purposes, so you know exactly why someone requested access as well as why they approved it. For this, we're going to just set these access package requests to auto approve. And then we want to be able to see Megan request and get access. So we're going to enable new requests and assignments. And then lastly, we're going to set the life cycle. So this is how long we want the access package to exist for. So this is going to be an ongoing collaboration. So we're going to let the expiration stay at about a 1-year period. And since it might go on even further than that, we can actually, through these advanced expiration settings, allow users to extend their access. So at the end of the year, they have the chance to say, hey, I'm still working on this. I still need access. And if we'd set up that request approval, you could also have them request and have the approval happen again as well. And then sometimes, people change jobs, they change roles, they move away from a company. So we can also integrate with our access reviews feature to do regular reoccurring reviews on access. So we can set the starting date for this, find to let it start today, and then we can decide review frequency. So let's say we want to do this monthly, and also have the reviewer be the person themselves who has access. So in this case, Megan's going to get an email every month asking her whether she still needs access. And if she says yes, it's great. She'll continue having access. If she were to say no, she'd be removed from that access package and would no longer have access to those resources. And what's nice about this is if a user loses all access to their access packages, they have no access packages left, they'll actually be removed from the tenant. First blocked for 30 days and then removed from the tenant. That way you don't have any of these orphaned external users sitting in your tenant after they they no longer need access within it. And with that, that's it. We can review all of the things we just set, and then we can create this access package. And then while it's creating, it'll be real quick. I'm going to hand it back over to Nitika to talk through Megan's experience requesting access.
Thank you, Caroline. As Caroline mentioned, Megan is an employee with Contoso who's collaborating with Woodgrove. Megan is excited to see an email from the Woodgrove team. This is an email from Rabindra, who's the IT admin at Woodgrove. And now Megan can simply click on this link to get access to all the resources she needs to collaborate with Woodgrove. Here, Megan can see the access package that Rabindra from Woodgrove has shared with her. This is the standard access package for all Contoso employees. She can simply request access, provide justification that she's collaborating with Woodgrove, submit this request. Once submitted, she can view the status of this request. Here, she can see that the request was submitted, the request was auto-approved, and it's being delivered at the moment. Megan then switches back to her inbox, and she's excited to see that she's received emails from Woodgrove welcoming her to collaborate on these resources. Now let's imagine a month has passed. Megan has been working closely with Woodgrove. Woodgrove requires all their business partners to review the access every month. So now Megan can go into the access review experience, see the access review request, click on it, And since her project is going to take longer than a month, she wants to request further access, provide justification that the project is ongoing, submit this access request. And now Megan has access to Woodgrove resources for the next month as well, and she can work with her colleagues at Woodgrove. So far, we talked about how you can apply least privileged access to your employees and business partners. Next, we're going to talk about how you can apply additional security controls for your business partners by verifying their access explicitly as well as assuming breach. This is where conditional access and identity protection come in play. Conditional access provides you a comprehensive policy framework with a set of conditions. You can apply policies based on the type of the user, whether they are an admin or a regular user. You can apply policies based on whether a user is part of the group. You can apply policies based on the kind of device that the user is coming from, whether it's an iOS device, Android device, whether it's a managed device or not. You can apply policies based on the location of the user. And lastly, you can apply policy based on the kind of app that the user is using to access a service. Based on all these conditions, you can enforce a set of controls. For instance, you can require multi-factor authentication. We live in a world where passwords are no longer good enough and you need additional level of verification. You can simply block access if that's an activity you don't expect in your organization. Or you can require limited access, forced password change, and so on. All these conditions and control work across all apps in your environment. They work across your Microsoft applications as well as your non-Microsoft applications, including the on-premises applications in your environment. Identity protection is constantly looking out for you. Identity protection can detect risky behavior within your environment and help prevent those risky behavior in real time. Next, we want to show you how it all works. I will hand off to Caroline to show you the demo.
In the previous demo, we saw how Rabindra set up collaboration between the Contoso organization and his Woodgrove tenant. Now, Rabindra wants to set up multi-factor authentication, or MFA, for all those external users coming into his Woodgrove tenant. He already has a policy set up for his regular employees. He just wants to extend that to all of his external users as well. And luckily, you can use, no matter what identity provider your external users are coming from, MFA will still work. Let's head back to the Azure portal and set up a conditional access policy within the security blade. Okay, so we're going to create a new conditional access policy. This again is aimed at requiring MFA for all those external users. So I'm going to name it that. Next, we're going to determine who's in scope for this policy. So we could select all users, but again, we want to focus this on all those external guest users coming to the organization. Now that we have the users selected, we can move on to the applications that are in scope. So we could set this up for all cloud apps, but we're going to focus for this demo on applying it to those applications we had in scope for the access package. So that includes Box, as well as SharePoint. Great. So now we have those applications selected. Now we could apply conditions. There are quite a few different conditions we can apply. You could apply a user risk, either high, medium, or low. You can apply a sign-in risk that could be based off of someone coming from a new location or from an unknown browser. We also have device platforms. So if you wanted to scope this specifically to certain devices like Android or iOS and roll it out that way, you can do so too. We also have locations. So you could select a location based off of certain IP addresses or from countries, especially if you're only working within specific countries. We're not going to add any conditions. Next, we're going to head into selecting the controls. So we could decide to block access. An example would be like if we wanted to block all high-risk external users, we could do that. But for this case, we want to grant access. We just want to require them to do a multi-factor authentication prompt first. So now that we have the policy configured, this last step will be to turn the policy on. We do have this report-only option. If we wanted to turn the report-only mode on, you can actually see the potential impact of the policy without actually having it apply to your users yet. In this case, we actually want to turn it on.
So far, we talked about how you can extend zero trust to your business partners. What about your customers? Next, let's double click on how you can extend zero trust to your own customers. Organizations can use Azure AD B2C to connect with their own customers. Azure AD B2C provides a fully customizable experience and supports sign-in using a wide range of social identity providers like Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, as well as standard-based protocols like OpenID Connect and OAuth 2.0. With Azure AD, you can extend zero trust to your customers, similar to how you applied zero trust to your employees and partners. In case of customers, it's equally important that you verify their identity. Just passwords are no longer good enough for your customers. You want to make sure you have an additional layer of verification for your customers when needed. You also want to monitor any suspicious behavior with your customers and make sure you're protecting them in real time. This is necessary for your customers to be able to trust your business and for you to be able to protect your business against threats. Now let's show you how you can consistently apply the zero trust controls to your customers. For this demo, we have our favorite IT admin, Rabindra, who's an IT admin at Woodgrove. Woodgrove IT has recently built a new portal for their customers to be able to manage their car appointments. Rabindra at Woodgrove IT is tasked to protect their customers. And now he wants to deploy a conditional access policy similar to the conditional access policy he had for his business partners. Rabindra wants to roll out a conditional access policy for his customers. Rabindra logs into the Azure portal, and within the Azure AD B2C tenant, he goes to conditional access. Within conditional access, as you can see, there are some options that are disabled. These are options that do not apply to B2C customers. Rabindra wants to make sure Woodgrove customers have a seamless experience. So he does not want to prompt them for multi-factor authentication every time they sign in. Instead, he wants to prompt for multi-factor authentication only when needed, only when the sign-in is risky. So Rabindra decides to roll out a risky MFA policy. He wants to apply this to all customers for Woodgrove. This is where he can also scope the policy to specific users and groups, specific admin roles in the directory, or guest users within this B2C tenant. Next, he wants to apply the policy to all the applications that Woodgrove offers to their customers. Again, he can choose to scope the policy to specific apps if he wanted. This is where the power of conditional access lies. He can choose from a wide range of conditions for this policy. In this case, he wants to apply MFA only when there's sign-in risk. He selects high and medium. This is where he could choose to apply other conditions like device platform and location. For example, while Woodgrove plans to expand to other regions, currently Woodgrove Car memberships are only available in the US. So one of the policies that Rabindra wants to roll out in the future is to allow access to Woodgrove websites only from United States. That's for future, not for today. So we'll move on. Now that Rabindra has selected the assignments for the policy, he's going to next define the access control. This is where he can choose to block access or require multi-factor authentication. In this case, Rabindra wants to require MFA when the risk is there. So he'll go ahead and select this control. Now Rabindra has a choice to make. He can either roll out this policy immediately, or he can turn on this policy in report-only mode. With report-only mode, he has the ability to run this policy in silent mode and understand the impact of the policy before he enables it for his customers. Rabindra is smart and he wants to sleep well at night. So he's going to go ahead and enable this policy in report-only mode, monitor the impact before he enables it for his customers. I'll go ahead and create this policy. Now that Rabindra has created this conditional access policy, he wants to make sure that the user flows that his app developers have created have conditional access enabled within them. So he goes to the user flow section of Azure AD B2C. Here he can look for the conditional access user flow. And he wants to verify that the app developers indeed have enabled conditional access in this flow. He scrolls down. Here he can see that conditional access is enforced in this user flow. This is where he can also change the MFA method that he wants to make available to his customers. He can choose from SMS or call or email. In this case, he has picked email address for his organization. Next, Rabindra wants to take a look at the risky users that identity protection has detected for his environment. Rabindra goes to the risky users experience in Azure AD B2C. For prioritization, Rabindra has filtered down the risky users by risk level. He only wants to focus on the high-risk users within the environment. Here he notices this user Flash32. Looking at the risk history for the user, he had a number of risk events in the past. Another thing that he observes is that Rabindra's colleague, Eitan, had actually remediated this account. After the account was fixed, there was more suspicious activity that led to the account to high risk again. Based on this track record, Rabindra wants to block this user account and require Flash to work with Woodgrove's support team before he gets access to any of the Woodgrove applications. In this demo, we showed you how Rabindra applied conditional access to his customers and used identity protection to investigate high-risk users. Conditional access and identity protection for Azure AD B2C is in public preview. Now you can use cloud intelligence to understand the risk within your B2C environment and automatically protect your environment with risk-based conditional access policies. Try out these new features, and we are eager to hear your feedback as we roll these features into general availability. To wrap up this session, we talked about how you can extend zero trust to all kinds of your users, starting from your employees to your business partners and your customers. With Azure AD Identity Governance, conditional access, identity protection, you can consistently apply security and governance controls to all kinds of users. Before you pause this video or close your browser, here are some next steps for you to embark on your zero trust journey for all your users. Start with enabling multi-factor authentication for your employees and your business partners. Just passwords is no longer good enough. Multi-factor authentication can reduce your compromise rate by 99.9%. Even better, if you can, start piloting password lists within your organization. Next, check out the conditional access and identity protection public preview for B2C and provide us feedback on the public preview so we can make it better for general availability. Third, test out the entitlement management features for enabling partner collaboration. In the next month, set up some access reviews for partners to make sure there's no standing partner access within your environment. Lastly, enable risk-based conditional access policies for all your user types, employees, business partners, and customers to protect against threats in real time. Here are some resources that cover the topics we went over in way more detail. Thank you so much for watching today.
We hoped you learned how to apply zero trust to all your users. Thanks so much.